Well, welcome to our home. I'm Dr. Russ. This is Southeast Michigan. This is my backyard. And boy, is it a perfect place to shoot critters and to practice. And today we're going to feature the Hatsan Blitz. The Hatsan Blitz is the first full auto air gun made. There's been some semi-autos. Ivanix had them, and Hatsan has made a couple. But this is the first full auto. And we're going to talk about the features, good, bad, and ugly. There's some of each on this gun. But I think it's important that we let you know what that word Blitz means. Hatsan's a Turkish company. Blitz is a German word. Hatsan sells a lot of guns to Europe. And they named this the Hatsan Blitz, a German word which means flash, and it's really only used in terms of war. The Blitzkrieg is probably the most famous saying. This is where the Germans would come in and win a war very quickly. The U.S. had something very similar. They called it shock and awe. We used it in the Iraq War, shock and awe. Well, this is the Blitz. Just to give you a little idea, Germany came through Belgium in 2 days. 2 hours. They hit two cops who were directing traffic with a tank as they came in, and the country was theirs. They took over Poland in a week. And here sat France, run by the famous General de Gaulle. And he had something between France and Germany called the DiMaggio line. And he said, I don't care about Blitzkrieg, they're not coming through this line. It was a huge hill-like structure. It even had trains underneath, and they could move the soldiers to wherever they were being attacked along that German border. And what Germany did was they came through Belgium, they came in behind the France DiMaggio line and completely surprised General de Gaulle. He wasn't such a famous general anymore. Well, that's a little background on what the word Blitz means. And boy, did the Germans use it well. The first video expressed my concerns. I'm very, very concerned about this gun because, you can buy this gun without licenses, special permits, and in the hands of a wrong young person who would take it into their school, this gun can kill people. It starts at 22, 25, and 30 caliber, and it can kill people. And the air gun industry has just been blessed without government intervention. And I'm worried that one day the whole world will wake up and say, wait a minute, they're making air guns, even with silencers on them and full auto, and we don't know anything about it. Well, let's legislate that thing. And so I was worried about it, and I expressed that in our first video. The second video today, we're going to do a program on what's the good things, the bad things, a couple of ugly things on this gun, and cover them all before you buy one, or if you got one, and what you do going forward. First, let me remind everybody who doesn't know me, I don't take any free guns, free ammo. I built my own gun rack here. Free scopes, I do none of that. I don't even know the top executives at these various companies. I really would like to just give you a good, neutral position on these guns, and that's what I've been doing. This is video number 35, and it'll be just as neutral as the ones before it. Let me begin with the good features about this gun. This, of course, is a Hatsan gun. Has a Hatsan barrel. All Hatsans have Hatsan barrels. You need to know something about those barrels. Probably the best barrel made in the entire industry is the Walther barrels. I have a Benjamin Armada, and it has a Walther barrel in it. Some Benjamins have that. You pay about $80 more, but oh, what a nice barrel that is, and that grouping just shrinks right down with that name Walther. I'm told by a number of people that the Hatsan barrel is right up second to that barrel. It's a great barrel, and so when you get a Hatsan gun, you probably have a pretty good barrel in it, if you will. But there's been some changes going on in the barrels. Originally, Hatsan made a lot of guns. 10 years ago, they were 19-inch barrels. And then they shifted to 21. And just in the past, I think, 12 months or so, 23 inches. Now, they put 23-inch barrels now in any new gun coming out. For example, this Hatsan Bully, it only has the 21-inch barrel. And down here is the Bull Boss. It has a 21-inch barrel. I have some older Hatsans that have the 19. We pick up about 50 feet per second with every 2 inches. So a 19-inch barrel goes to 21. You pick up 50 feet, you go to a 23-inch, and you picked up now 100 feet per second of velocity. You also pick up accuracy. So these longer barrels, plus being a Hatsan barrel, is a real plus for newer Hatsan guns today. Only gun that beat Hatsan to the semi-automatic world was a South Korean company named Evanix, and they made the Evanix Sniper. And their semi-automatic was run by battery motor, an electric motor, in the stock, and Hatsan has leaped over that to how powder guns that are semi-automatic and automatic work, and that's taking a little bit of that power, that pressure in the barrel, funneling it back here to do the chambering. So there's no batteries to change, etc., etc. Then Hatsan decided to jump right on out in front of not only Evanix, but just about everybody out there with this full auto. They might have done it a little bit early, but I'll get to that in a minute. We also have a number of key features. Notice this sling swivel mounted here. A lot of bullpups only place to mount is back here. And so it's a very short sling, but we've never seen this before. And I have to tell you, I like it. This butt plate back here, which is hard rubber, slides up and down. So you can really make this rifle custom to your face and your shoulder. The gun comes with this handle. It's called a handle, but there's a sight in both the front and the back, and an adjustment here, which you can then make the front sight go up and down, and an adjustment here, which can make the back adjustment go left and right. Nice features. They spent a lot of money and time on this, something that can actually come off pretty quick. And we have a Pinkani rail here to mount a scope. Why did they do that? Well, when you have a full auto gun, maybe you don't need a scope. Maybe iron sights are just as good. Other features, they make a very good gun at a very good price. Those, obviously, the Turkish people in their factory, it's a huge factory, by the way, they work cheap. Most everybody else will funnel at least some parts over to China and make them probably there even cheaper, some parts. But Hatsan's made entirely there in Turkey, and they come in at prices 25-30% below the competition still. Anything that saves some money in your pocketbook, I think, is good. The Blitz is rather interesting because it's very unforgiving. It's not into accuracy so much as it is to blowing out pellets 1,200 to 1,400 per minute. The entire magazine is gone. So because of that forgiveness, and they've made the full auto their priority, not accuracy, in my book, what's happened here is that you can get all of your old pellets that you bought with previous guns and along the same caliber and run them through a Blitz, and because you're going to have a really expensive ammo fund going when you get a Blitz. First of all, the gun's not cheap. It runs around $1,000, and then you could run through $1,000 worth of pellets in 6 months. So it's forgiving in that it'll take up any and old pellets that you might have. I think one of the things that helps you decide on a gun or not, and it helped me in buying this gun, was its military look. I like the military tactical look. I was in Vietnam, so I like this look. Some people don't. They want a wood stock. This gun doesn't come in a wood stock yet. Other guns do, but it had the military look. So that was a point in its favor for me. I had to laugh I was watching some YouTube videos, and one of the key players out there said, now don't ask me about the velocity. You don't need to know that. This is full auto. He said, don't ask me about energy. This is full auto. And I had to laugh at these things. Perhaps he's right. It's shooting so fast you don't have to worry about that. Put about 3 rounds in an animal instead of 1. So maybe we're not overly concerned with velocity and energy when we talk full auto. Another fella said, boy, that sound, you just never get it enough. That auto making sound is a thrill. We didn't use that in Vietnam because it would use up all of our ammo. In fact, when I got into a firefight, my whole job was to keep everybody on semi-auto and to hold back the guns as much as we could, because it took about 15 minutes for me to get a helicopter to us who would drop us more ammo, and a man only carries so much weight, and that's usually about 300 rounds. That M16 is a smaller round than AK-47s and other 30 caliber type rounds. So the average enemy soldier might carry 200, and we were carrying 300. Nonetheless, we'd run into that enemy, and they had tunnels and bicycles and all kinds of stuff carrying that stuff. And as a result, we had to be very careful. And there was a couple of times we literally ran out of ammo before the helicopter arrived and dropped some to us. You're going to go through a lot of ammo on this gun. Well, let me cover some of the negative things. It works on full auto and semi-auto by using power that's directed back down this barrel to chamber another round down here, like this. There's a small hole up here that allows that to happen. And so the manual is very explicit. This gun has to be cleaned every 500 to 1,000 rounds max, or that hole gets plugged and it won't work. The gun just quits. There's a lot of people that don't ever clean their guns. With this gun, shooting 500 rounds can take place in an afternoon, and we've got to get this thing clean, or that hole gets plugged. That hole problem is a little bit bigger than just that. The manual also talks about don't use oil, a lot of oil, don't use any oil in the barrel, don't use any lubricants, etc. Well, I happen to use lubricated pellets. I have a silicone or a chain wax, I call it, on those that helps seal that bullet going down the barrel. And lubed bullets work real well. You're not supposed to use oil or anything. For brake barrels that have, often the old Springers had leather pieces back here, and that oil ruined them. So we didn't have to worry about it with more recent made guns, but we have to with this. They don't want any oil in this barrel at all. So we're shooting dry ammo through a dry barrel. But the second thing is these magazines. And if you look on the back there, right at about 9 o'clock, you'll see a tiny pinhole. That's where the spring that makes this thing bring ammo around fits into that. One of the things that we determine when we're loading this is that spring has some kick to it. But after it's come all the way around and you're on those last 5, 6, 7, there's not a lot of spring left. And that spring is crucial because it's got to make sure that the next pellet's in there, ready to go, when this gas comes down that tube and rechambers this. So we have two things separately happening to one another. A spring driving this and air driving this to make sure that when that hammer comes back forward, we're ready to shoot. And when that spring gets a little tired, you're going to find yourself drilling some new holes in the back and making that spring tension greater. I'd get into that, but there's some good videos out on that already. There's some good videos on cleaning this and leaving oil out of your formula. But those are disadvantages. You don't have to be that careful with other guns. A third complaint is this port. Now, we all like the American ports better, where we have a female in the gun, where Hatsan and a lot of Europeans use this probe as the male part. Well, this is where it goes in. And it turns out that this is bigger than the one you might have. The one that's used for these other guns here on the table is smaller. So this gun needs a lot of air and needs that bigger one. But they don't send you the other piece. Now, what a lot of guys have done, and I was planning to do, is you just leave that air probe in there with the female adapter so we can refuel it much like we would an American gun. But they didn't include that. That's about 10 bucks on the internet. You have to take apart whatever air source you have to get this into it. And if you don't have the right ones, you've got a gun that you can't shoot for the first week while you wait for additional air parts to come in. And the fourth and big one that's out there is this. Most air guns come with some air in them. You can see that this is 0 right here. And the manual says your gun was shipped without air, and that filling it is a problem. So when you put the port in and you fill it with air, you hear the air leaking out. Some people never read the manual. They just send the gun back and said, this gun leaks. Well, that's the worst nightmare of any air gunner, is an air gun that leaks. Well, they didn't read the manual. The manual said, if that happens, you pull this hammer back and lock it into position. And then you can fill it, and it'll keep the air, but probably not with a hand pump, and probably not with a little tiny compressor, but with a scuba tank, a rush of air. That helps the sealing of the seals back here so that it doesn't leak. Well, I tried all three, and I couldn't get this thing to not leak air. I never got it up off that base plate of yellow. I never got it away from it sounding like air. And so this gun's going back. And it is unshot. All because of that fourth issue. No air in the compressor. It would have been nice if Hatsan had filled it with air, used their compressor, or found out the ones that really have a seal problem. And by the time it got to us, it might have 100, 200 bar of pressure in there, and it would be fine going forward. Filling it would be no issue. But when they send them with no air, that becomes a bit of a liability. What's my general feeling? My general feeling is this. This is the first generation of full auto. It's got issues. I think that I'm going to stay. I'm talking for me personally now. I'm going to stay away from this gun for 6 months to a year. I want to see how that second generation arrives. And did they fix these major problems? I think major. First of all, firing 1,200 rounds a minute is just way too much. The reason that we would even use full auto in any combat situation is you'd go tut 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 and keep bullets hidden somewhere where a guy would keep his head down or stay behind a tree or a wall or something. This goes, it's over, and the enemy would know, well, he shot his full auto, his clip's empty, we can attack now. So military thinking tells me this is not the gun I want. A fifth disadvantage to this gun is you cannot have a moderator or silencer on the end, much like this bully does. You can't mess with that air pressure at all that's at the end of the barrel coming back. And silencers do just that. They're going to have to find a way to make these things sync. The air coming down the barrel and the spring that winds up that magazine. And then that'd be a whole lot more. And they've got to get air into that tank before they ship them. Those are just minimum things they're going to have to do before Dr. Russ buys another one. I'm going to give their one of their just semi-automatics. I think the Invader's the one I'm going to ask for in return. About half the price. Shoot semi-auto. Now I can make it shoot like an auto about as fast as my finger goes if I wanted to. But not full auto. I think for me, it's a little bit of a gimmick, and it is something I just soon at $1,000 a crack. I think I'll just wait until they make it right. I've got to thank Dr. Paula for filling in for me. I was out getting some more air guns last week when she did our last video, number 34. And for her first, that wasn't too bad. I thought she handled it reasonably well. She, you know, we breed Dobermans here, and I've had a number of people say we need to have a video out there on raising Dobermans, and she may get that job as a result of filling in for me last week. You might want to subscribe if you want to be the first one on your block to get our next videos. We haven't done one on this bull boss yet, but some people tell me this is the most accurate, best gun that they make. We'll find out. I've got both calibers of the Air Venturi Avenger, the 22 and the 25. I've got both calibers of the Gauntlet, 22 and 25. I think we'll probably do some comparisons between those $300 to $299 guns, and they're regulated. Well, that's a beautiful word. I'll even talk a little bit more about regulation in the future, and should you get one or not. At any rate, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and make sure above all other things that you remain air gun sharp.